Hello everyone, it's Bri-Bri again. I know I just posted a video, but I feel led or compelled to do another one real quick. So, because we had Let Us Pray filming in the background of life, we kind of had to be a little careful about what we said, what we talked about, to not kind of spoil the show, and just to be careful with current like trials and or investigations that were going on for us victims behind the scenes, and we just had to be careful about what we were saying. And but now the show is already out, and I feel compelled to continue opening up the conversation for everyone that may or may not know the whole story and maybe has questions, or open it up for the members of our churches that have been left behind in this sad story. And maybe left behind as in, yay, they were not a victim of abuse, or left behind and just not knowing like the truth. And they're still at the church, or maybe they're still loyal, or maybe they are still really good friends with all the people that maybe kind of hurt all of us victims who have since left the churches. Please hold. Okay, so, and I don't mean left behind as in like the Christian, like they're all left behind and the rapture happened. I just mean there are definitely people that don't know the whole story and they only hear bits and pieces. So I just want to open up the conversation and let y'all know kind of our side of things, and I guess maybe sort of give you another perspective, whether you are, still at a church or have left a church, or maybe you've never been to church and you don't know how, I guess, engulfed we can be with our churches, especially in IFB. We basically like eat, sleep, breathe at the church, especially when we have a church school combination. Then it's like every single day you're with the same people. Sometimes it's so small and like tight knit that we all know each other very, very well, and sometimes a little too well, if you know what I mean. So I just want to talk about John Jenkins. Okay, so it's Pastor John M. Jenkins. And is he still a pastor? Yes. He was basically like this is just my perspective. Now, all the girls behind Blind Eye and boys behind Blind Eye, like, we all may feel a little differently about him, and we all may have had a different perspective on this man. But in my world, in my home, in my family and everything, we like viewed him as, I don't know, like Christian royalty, if you will. And I looked at him like the most honorable man, and like our world's president. So we honored him, we respected him, we listened to him, we obeyed him. If we had like an important thing in our lives, like a lot of our adult parents would go to him like, hey, should I marry this person? Should I buy this car? Should I buy this house? What do you think about this? And then if you ever wanted to leave that church, it was like, I don't know, like you were never allowed to leave unless it was God calling you to a specific other church that was very much in line with us, and maybe, supported the same missionaries. Maybe they supported the same beliefs, rules, colleges. It's almost like you had to have like this inside connection or something to another church in order for like a pastor to like give you the blessing to leave. And maybe that's just my perception of how it was when I was a kid, but that's what I believed how things worked, was that the pastor was like in charge of everyone, and whatever the pastor says goes. And even within like our homes, if like our parents like weren't sure about something, they'd go to the pastor for advice. And I don't know if it's like that in every IFB church. I don't know if they all do that, but I think it is. I mean, I'm pretty sure. So and then you had families that would just poof and disappear, and you would just hear rumors of why, like, oh, the dad had an affair, or the mom was caught doing this, or their child got pregnant out of wedlock, so they just poofed away, and we just like didn't get to say goodbye, and we're like, where did they go? So sometimes things like that would happen. And then especially if a pastor was in trouble for something, and it would just be like this big rumor, but no one really knew for sure what happened, they'd be like, oh, well, he got called away to such and such church, instead of going to the police, instead of telling us like, hey, this man was dangerous, hey, he touched kids, or hey, he was like a bad bus driver and he did weird stuff. Instead of like letting us know. And I don't know. I was just a kid when all this was happening. So maybe in their staff meetings, they actually talked about it. But I can't verify that because I wasn't on staff. So I don't know if behind the scenes, maybe they did talk about it. Maybe they talked amongst themselves, but like didn't announce it to the church. So then we couldn't keep ourselves safe from that person. Like, let's say Mr. Schmilland got in trouble for something at our church, which was in Gaylord, Michigan. It's Grace Baptist Church. Let's say he got in trouble with us, and then he moves out to Schmishmorshmanville, and that church doesn't have any clue what happened. But then let's say I go and move to the Schmishmorshman church, and sorry, that's off a movie. I should not say that. Let's say I move out there, and that bro is there, and I had no idea that he left my church originally because he did something bad. Then I just go to that church and be like, a familiar face, let's be friends again, and hang out, and I'll go to your potlucks. Well, then I could be getting abused at that church with that same bro because we never knew that bad stuff happened. Like, does that make sense? So I know for a fact, not to sound like somebody else, but based off of all the hearsay I hear about all the other churches, this is kind of how they operate. And even in the Let Us Pray show, where, you know, Sarah Smith was doing all that investigative work, which was amazing, and getting all the stories, there were so many patterns of different pastors being moved around, shipped around, and, you know, you didn't always know why, but somebody knew. And usually it was the lead pastors that would know something's up. And if they really did, you know, a really great investigative work and found out the whole truth, I have no idea. I don't know if they even cared. I don't really know. Didn't seem like they did from my perspective. And this is just me saying what I think on my opinion. All the other men and women behind the scenes, they have their own opinions and they have their own voices that they, you know, can say whatever they want to say. I'm just saying, like, this is my opinion of all this, and this is what, like, I absorbed, and then just talking to everyone else, what they experienced with, like, Pastor Jenkins and all the other big wig leaders of our churches. Because if you know anything about Grace Baptist or Hiles Anderson, they were like royalty, and we worshipped them. And it was kind of sad in a way, like just looking back at how much we cared. And like our youth pastors were like our second dads, you know, and they were just so important, like to me. Like that's how I viewed them. I viewed them as like these amazing men that could do no wrong. And I thought they were, I don't know, just someone I really looked up to, and someone that I trusted, someone that I believed, someone that I went to advice about, like, hey, should I date this person? Should I like this person? What do you think about this person? And I would get their advice. And it just makes me sad now, honestly. So anywho, I had a whole list of things I was going to say, and I just started going off. So apologies. I was going to be like organized so I wouldn't repeat myself a lot, but you know, passion gets in the way. So anywho, so John Jenkins was our leader. And we all have different experiences with him. Like people that were my direct peers may have a completely different view of him than I did. And even to this day, they may look at him in a completely different light because they may not know all the garbage that we know and know all the things that he said about us victims. And they may have no idea. So I can't fault the people that have no idea what we all went through. I can't fault the people that only hear what's from the pulpit and they only know and believe what they hear from the pulpit. And it can just be so skewed when a victim comes forward about something and the pastor decides to write a story and give it to the church. That can be detrimental to this person because they can just claim like, oh, well, you know, she made this married man stumble. You know, she was just too sexual. She was too pretty. She was just dressed too provocatively. She made the man stumble. So now this man is going to move to a different church and this girl's going to get like excommunicated from the church. I know that's not really like our verbiage, but like to help other people understand, other religions use that kind of phrase, but we just thought it was getting kicked out and like expelled from the school or kicked out of the church because we, you know, do something wrong. And that's just kind of like the spin. And I remember my friends telling me that when I left, they had a whole like sermon during school because we had school chapel. And if you've never been to a church school, in school was all about religion too, and all about preaching, singing, like worshiping God during school too. So we would have chapel services and they would preach to us students. And then apparently they talked about me. And I was really sad because the way they worded it was more like I was a rebel leaving, and, you know, like I was, I don't know, bad or something. And it's just really sad. And I kind of want to ask that friend again, like, what exactly did they say? Because it was so long ago that I found that out. It's just disheartening when you've seen it happen your whole life, and you've seen when a pastor gets up and tries to explain away why a person leaves, whether it's a young person or an adult, there's a story, you know, and it may or may not be true. And it's just like, it's awkward, to say the least. So it sucks when it happens to you, and it sucked that it happened to so many other people, that we believed those stories, and then we treat those other people differently. When we find out someone leaves, we basically treat them like garbage. Like, well, you're not good enough to be my friend anymore. We can't talk to you anymore. We can't, be associated with you anymore because you left our magical, wonderful cult. Church that could do no wrong. And it's just weird. It's like, it is a whole nother world. And when we say like blind eye movement, like we were all blind for a time because we didn't know the truth. We didn't know that some of those rumors were actually true, or some of those rumors were completely made up to make it look like different than what it really was. Like, they're not going to want to say like, hey, we had 18 pedophiles in the last 10 years, and we just say that they all got called away. They're not going to want to say that from the pulpit. They don't want to scare everyone or lead people away from God. And that's all good and fine. You would do better for your students, your members, and the perps to just tell the truth. And so that way you can be transparent, and that way people can feel good in your pews and know that you're going to tell the truth and keep their children safe. Because lying about crimes cannot possibly do your church a better service. And does God really want to bless a place that's lying all the time about abuse, and that it just keeps covering it up? And sometimes church members don't know that they're part of the problem. So I'll give you that. A lot of church members are really good people, and their hearts are great. You know, staff members, secretaries, assistant pastors, all those people may not be in the know, because they were told that this person left because they were just backslidden and they decided to listen to rock music and wear pants, so they need to get out of here, and they may have just been spreading those rumors along with everyone else, not realizing how terrible things were actually happening behind the scenes. So we can't fault everyone. We know it's not the church that's just the problem. We know that it's human beings making mistakes and causing harm to others and committing crimes by their own choosing. And then some may be willing participants in covering up, hiding it, whatever. And some may just be like blindly following along, not realizing what they're doing. And they also don't get trained that they're mandatory reporters. They're not trained in the signs of abuse. They're not trained in what to do if someone says that they're abused. Mostly their training is like, pray about it, talk to the pastor, get in-house counseling kind of thing. And I don't even think they would call it counseling. They probably called it something else. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe they called it counseling. I can't really remember, but I don't remember that being a thing. Like, we didn't talk about like your normal secular world things. Like, it wasn't like, go to your therapist. It was like, therapists are bad, medicine is bad, just keep it in-house, don't tell the world about it. You keep everything very like tight-knit, hush-hush in your own little churchy circles. So, sorry, I'm just like, I don't know. Anyways, so when leadership fails, this is one of my points, when leadership fails, it hurts. Okay, that's just the bottom line. That's just the truth. When someone fails to get a person help, it sucks, because we're trained to go to the pastors, and if the pastors fail us, then I'm sorry, but it's kind of your fault. Like, you are a leader of a church and a school. You should be educating yourself in the real world problems, not just spiritual world stuff, not just like church issues, but real life crimes and issues, and get yourself more educated on laws and what are actual crimes and things like that. Because if it's all in-house, it's all like your own man-made rules that are not so helpful, as have been proven. Like, it's been proven that the way the church does it is not perfect. And I
agree that there should be some sort of separation of church and state so that people are allowed to worship and people are allowed to have beliefs and people aren't regulated by just the government, because the government alone is its own kind of cult and its own kind of issue, and politics get so out of control, similar to a church, but just different beliefs, different rules, different blah blah blah. So there just has to be a happy medium with the rules and with what happens when someone comes forward with a problem and what happens when there's a crime committed, whether it's in the government or in a church or in a hospital, because we are all knowledgeable that in any kind of workplace or any kind of school, whether it's private, Christian, charter, whatever kind of school there is, it's all made up of humans, and it's all made up of people that make mistakes and commit crimes. So you're not going to find a place with zero crime, zero problems, zero issues. So there just has to be accountability, and there has to be safety. There has to be a way to get justice for the victims that bad things happen to, if that all makes sense. And it's just the Baptist churches, and or at least in our circles, I can't say all of them, but most of them, they happen to not do a great job at protecting women and children, or men for that matter. I'm so used to being a woman and talking about women and children because that's my experience, but sometimes we forget that it happens to boys all the time too. They are just less likely to tell because, especially with the environment of the church, it's just so like, I don't know. They would get, so women get shamed and they're called Jezebel or the Scarlet Letter, whatever kind of, you're a hoe or whatever. They'll say like horrible things. Sorry for saying that, but they'll say horrible things about women when they come forward saying that they were abused. And they'll say like, it's the woman's fault because the man stumbled or whatever. Or like I said earlier, she was too attractive and he couldn't help himself. And they preach that. And then when a man or a boy gets abused, it's kind of like, they should be enjoying it or something. Like it's this whole other completely opposite effect for them. And it's like more shameful. Like, I don't know, oh, you're gay, or, oh, like you probably liked it, or whatever. They'll just say like terrible things to boys when they get abused, or you should have fought for yourself, or like, why weren't you strong? Or you're so weak, or you're so feminine. And it just makes it so hard for them to come forward. So I apologize if I don't always like include you guys, but we know that it is a huge problem. And you definitely should give yourself grace and definitely stand up for yourself. Like just know that you are included in our thoughts, and any advice we give or any kind of support, like you're welcome to be here too. And we don't mean to like exclude you at all. Like I usually say she or girls or whatever, but we know you're out there, and we know that you get hurt, and we know that it's so hard to come forward because it hasn't been easy, and it's not very inviting for you, and we totally get that, and we're sorry. Like I'm sorry for the way pastors preach about that stuff, or the lack thereof, like the lack of teaching that boys can get hurt too just as much as girls, and that it is wrong and it's not okay and it's not your fault. So anywho, I feel like I'm just getting ranting, but there's just so much about this stuff to say, and so much that we just need to change. And I hope any pastor that sees this video can take what I'm saying seriously and know that the children who are getting abused are not the problem. We are not demon possessed. We are not evil spirits coming after the man of God or the men of God. We are not here to destroy the church or to destroy the possibility of someone going to heaven, because we don't want to do that. We didn't wake up one day and say like, you know what? Since we were abused, we're just going to go after the church and burn every church down. We're not thinking that. We're not thinking that at all. We're just telling our story. And if that happens to hurt your church or that hurts your numbers, then so be it. Because we didn't ask to be abused. We didn't ask to be tortured. We didn't ask to be assaulted. We're just telling you what happened. And then you do with it what you will. You can either change the way you preach, or you can stick to the same ways. And then every decade, you're going to have hundreds of people angry at you and hundreds of people talking about how horrible your way of life is, and it's not going to produce all the results you want. You're not going to get those how many people got saved numbers that you want, and you're not going to get all the baptisms. You're not going to get all that, and your numbers will go down, and your offering will get less because you keep letting the same things happen decade after decade. And it all starts with, the little churches who preach to the men and women who go off to the colleges, and then it grows from there, and they're being taught the same things religiously year after year, and they're covering up abuse year after year, and then they're trading pedophile pastors year after year. So this is just going to keep happening. But it's time we all just stand up and talk about it, and we all be grown-ups about it and realize, like, hey, there's a huge problem, and you can choose to fix it, and you can choose to hear us this time, or you could choose to be deaf and blind about it. I'm just gonna say that. People in our group, there's Ruthie, Sarah, Chelsea, Larissa, all those girls, and tons more know about Pastor Jenkins, and they have their own individual stories about him. So when people say, like, it's not his fault, it's not the church's fault that you're going through all this stuff, yes, it is. Yes, it is his fault. Because, like, if something happened once, like, let's say one victim from Grace Baptist Church came forward and she was like, or he was like, I told Pastor Jenkins and he just told me how to pray about it, and then he just made that pastor, like, move to another church. Let's say that just happened once. They didn't get police involved. They didn't tell the church about it. They didn't warn other students or ask around, like, hey, were any other students affected by this person? Not to, like, purposely create victims that aren't there, but just to check on the children that were under that pastor's leadership, or that teacher's leadership, or that volleyball coach's leadership. They should be checking on these kids. At least that's my opinion. I think schools and churches should do that. Just have little interviews, investigate, because it is a crime and they should all be investigated. Ask kids. Don't, like, purposely be like, you were touched, right? You were touched. No, it's just check on everybody. See, hey, like, we found out about this thing. Did anything unusual happen with you? Did this pastor or teacher ever make you uncomfortable or say anything? And just see what a kid says. You never know how you could help someone if they know it's okay to come forward, if they know that it was safe to tell their story. Maybe a lot more victims could be helped sooner, and therefore stop the cycle of abuse from happening over and over and over again. It's just like, it seems like a no-brainer now that I'm on the other side and I'm a parent, and I'm like, why aren't these things being fixed? It just seems crazy. So anywho, all of those girls have their own story. So I got sidetracked. But anyways, let's just say one person came forward. That would be bad. And I would hope that Pastor Jenkins would have changed his system and maybe made more like safety net things in case someone else came forward and completely stopped his ways. But since I know that there was definitely way more than one, then he's part of the puzzle, part of the problem, part of the puzzle of our abuse, which is why I made that post, which is why I put his face out there. And, we were trying to be really careful during different court things that were happening, and we didn't want to hinder any kind of investigations or anything like that. But now all that's pretty much over. So he's off living his life, and I have videos pulled up right here. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize he was posting videos of his current preaching. Some of them are kind of old, but looks like he streamed 5 days ago, and he's looking way older, which is so funny to see. But he, so Pastor Jenkins, John M. Jenkins, Fellowship Baptist Church in Clayton, North Carolina is where he's currently at, okay? Hilariously enough, he got called away after being at one church, like, basically his whole life. Like, since the church was born, he was the main pastor, like, the whole time. And I don't remember how old the church is. Definitely over 30 years, I know that much. I don't know how old, I can't remember. But I'm sure it says it, like, in one of those articles, like, the 50-year pastor or whatever of this Grace Baptist Church has been called away to North Carolina due to, well, let's just say, all the victims coming forward from his former church and all the problems. He felt that he was called away so that Pastor Haglin, his youth pastor, could take over for him and take all the hate so that he could get away with everything. So that's what I think the Lord must have told him, to get away from the problem instead of facing it, dealing with it, changing it, maybe shut the church down, I don't know, or revamp it, restart it, say whatever. I don't know. I don't really know how you come back from that. I don't know if any victims would truly be satisfied, so it may have been like a double-edged sword for him because I don't really know what he could have done to make up for all of those victims that, have left his church battered and bruised and never gonna be the same again. So, yeah. Let's see my notes here, if I got anything else. Okay, so I kind of already said this earlier, but every church has really great people. They're well-intended. They are there for a reason. They're there for passion. They want everyone to go to heaven. They want good things in life. They want to help the community. And there are plenty of churches with really good people. So when I left Grace Baptist, I left there knowing that my perpetrator was my problem, and knowing that, some of the rules were a bit of a problem. But I left there with a good heart. I didn't leave there thinking that that church was necessarily like full of demons or anything. Like, I left there still loving my pastors, still loving all my friends, still loving all the women in the church that were great examples to me. Like, I knew that my perp was the problem, but I didn't know that behind the scenes people were calling it an affair when I was actually raped and sexually assaulted by my pastor. And he wasn't the main pastor, but a pastor in the church, but he was also a teacher and a bus driver. So in tiny churches and schools, they wear many hats. So it can be like a pastor is a teacher, a bus driver, a soul winner, a leader in the nursery, like him and his wife would be like nursery directors, children's church leaders, all of that stuff, or choir directors. So they wear so many hats, and that means they have so many opportunities with children, with your children, with get-togethers at their house, with potlucks, with, running funerals, with running like everything, because they're so entwined. Okay, don't remember where I was going with that, but there's so much here. I could probably go on for like 3 days. I should have just made this a series, so I'm sorry. I'll try to finish, and maybe I will. Maybe I will just keep having little series of videos talking about pastors and leaders and all the things that they do and don't do, which they will hate me so much, but that's okay. If you want to preach about me, use my clips. I don't care. I want your congregation to hear me. Please, I will gladly just send it to all your church members. Please do. Okay, so I'm just gonna say, Pastor Haglund, not trying to say like, oh, of course, don't sue me. Okay. Just speaking the truth here. So he really meant the world to me. I looked at him like a dad. Like, I, of course, had father issues because like mine were in and out of my life. And I loved Pastor Haglund. I thought he was amazing. And I would say phrases my whole life that he would say, like someone that was just super influential in my life. And it is like beyond heartbreaking for me, because when all of us started coming out about our stories, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that he knew we were getting hurt and didn't necessarily do the right thing. Like, that actually crushed me really hard. And it really crushed me when I found out Pastor Jenkins was doing the same thing. Like, and if you guys watch this, just know that my heart was purely loving you guys, following you guys, listening to you guys, and just, I had you on such a high pedestal. So if I, who felt that way, could come around and realize like, oh my gosh, this is what you guys were doing. Like, these are the choices you made. And we all loved you guys. We all looked up to you, and we trusted you. We trusted you to keep us safe and to love us back and not look at us like throwaway, I don't know, like just throwaway kids that are blamed for our abuse. Like, it is very heartbreaking. So whatever negative energy you're getting from us, it's not because we just hate you for no reason. It's not because I'm not saying we hate you, but we don't just want to destroy your lives. We're not demon possessed. We're not trying to just cut down men of God to destroy your mission. Okay, we are real people. We have real horrible experiences that you didn't do the best job at helping us. So that sucks. And to Pastor Jenkins, my assault was not an affair. I didn't choose to be in that situation. I tried very, very hard to get out of it. And while you were preaching all about purity and how not to have sex before marriage and making all of us women feel horrible, I cried like every Sunday after your sermons. So I hope you know that. I hope you know that the pressure you put on women is awful. I hope you know that the rumors that were spread about me being too sexual or too, I don't know, like too tempting to the husbands is awful. And I know Beckner was the one that was like talking about that. Like he even told me like, oh, all the women in the church don't like you around their husbands. And I was like, what are you talking about? and it's awful. So just know that. It hurts. It hurts a lot because you boys who are grown-ups should be able to keep your pants on. You grown-up boys should be able to have some self-control. I don't care if a 13-year-old is walking around in a miniskirt. That's your problem to keep yourself together and clothed. It's not her fault for just walking around. Their little girls are not trying to do anything to men. Like, my God. And by the way, all of us girls who were tempting husbands were wearing the hideous, like the most hideous clothes, the most covered up conservative clothes. So you men don't care what we're wearing. Let's just put that out there. Let's just debunk that for a second, okay? All of you pastors that keep preaching that it's women's fault for getting touched, for getting raped and everything, and that one pastor that said for every man that gets in prison for committing those kind of crimes, there should be a half-naked woman next to him in a cell. That is the most awful thing I've ever heard, because I was dressed appropriately. Ruthie was dressed appropriately. Larissa was dressed appropriately. And I could go on and on and on about all the victims who were dressed completely appropriately to the T based on what the church approved and what our parents approved and the pastor approved, and we still got raped. So please, tell us how that happened. If it is the woman's fault and it is the woman's job to keep ourselves from getting abused, please tell me how that happened. Tell me. I would. Oh, any answers? Crickets, probably? Yeah. Let us know in the comments, all you pastors who still believe that full-heartedly and they're still preaching that very condescending, horrible message that it's all of our fault. Yeah, I want to know your answer, really, seriously. Yeah. Why don't you guys all have a teen spectacular and come up with a huge list of reasons why we're still getting abused when we follow all the rules, when we do everything we say. Well, like whatever you say. We stay away from boys. We stay on the girls' side of the classroom. We don't stay alone with boys. We follow every single rule, but somehow the adult men are taking advantage of all of us kids. And same with boys. Like, why are boys getting abused? They dress perfectly fine. They dress appropriately, but they still get abused behind closed doors. Why? Why is that? Because you grown-up men know what you're doing and you can take advantage of us and then blame us. So, yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh, I do believe that Pastor Haglund did reach out to me when we first came out in like 2019. I appreciate that. I am thankful for that. But back then, we still had Naomi kind of running the show, so I have no idea if I responded to you. I do appreciate you reaching out. I'm sorry that I don't really remember what you said. I think I got blocked, so I don't know if I can read those messages, but thank you if you watch this. I appreciate you reaching out because I think whatever you said was nice. Pastor Vest reached out to me as well, I believe, and I appreciate that. But back then, Naomi was kind of running the show, and she was very much like not okay with us talking to any of you whatsoever, and she definitely was demonizing you in a way more of the, I guess, do everything in a fight mode instead of having like productive conversations. Because if I could do it again, I would have just had a meeting with you guys. I would have just talked to you guys like a normal person and let you know how all of this happened and let you know what you could do in the future, because clearly you're still going to be pastors. We didn't stop you. We didn't make any of you guys step down. We didn't destroy the church good enough to have you guys stop preaching. So you're still going to do it, and you still have young people in your church. So if I could do it again, I would definitely do it differently. So I apologize. It kind of like we were letting her run the show because she was kind of a bully. So sorry, Naomi, but it's just the truth. I regret having like you try to push us around, because we could have had a much more productive beginning with all these churches if we had been able to not have you around, because you kind of hindered it. So just saying. I'm just truth telling right now. Let's see. Any other important points? Okay, so for those of you that's like, it's not Pastor Jenkins' fault, and because it's not just one person, by the way, because we did get a message today. I'm not just trying to call that out. That just kind of motivated me to talk about it, because we've had hundreds of people say the same thing. Hundreds of people, even people that don't go to Grace Baptist, say it's not the church's fault. You can't blame God. You can't blame Christians. It's not IFB. This is like your own problem kind of thing. It's just you. And I don't know. We've had so many people, even people in my own family, are like, stop blaming the church. And it's like, it's not just blaming the church. We're trying to change things. We're trying to help. The blind movement is trying to help people become unblind to the situation. And how can we do that without talking about it? We have to talk about it. Sorry. Like it or not. So in about 2011, I came forward with my story. The first person I told, unfortunately, was my ex-husband. And it didn't go well. I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of terrible. But then I told a counselor, and then I told like my mom, and then I told the state police and blah blah blah. So I went down like this whole list, but it took like 2 years to like fully like tell everyone, because it was like a long road of like it going badly, and then I'd like be quiet again, and then it, you know, whatever. So, and I ended up calling Pastor Jenkins. I think that was in 2013. I could be wrong. I don't know. It was like 2011, 2013, sometime in that window. It's been so long now, I can't remember, because right now it's 2024. So it's been a while. And I told him about Pastor Beckner because I was like, I better tell him, because I started talking about it more. And then I realized like, oh my gosh, what if he never knew? What if he never knew that's why I left? And I just wanted to clarify like, hey, I didn't leave because I was a rebel. I didn't leave because I was like backslidden. I left because I stopped my school career in 11th grade. The day before I went into 12th grade, I just said to my mom, like, I'm not going back, because Pastor Beckner talked me out of not going. And he said, like, I should just get my GED and I should move away with him and blah, blah, blah. So I wanted Pastor Jenkins to know that, because it always bothered me, like, I just left, you know? And I don't know, I just felt really bad about it, because in 2011 to 2013, I still respected Pastor Jenkins. I pretty sure I asked about him marrying me and my ex-husband. And it just like dawns on me, like, I still respected him. I still like thought he was just this great old pastor that I knew my whole life. And that's what makes me so sad about it, is that I found out in 2019 during a live that Jackie, I believe, and Sarah were having, and maybe some other people, I don't remember now, but it was on our Facebook page, like the OG one. And they were talking about Pastor Jenkins and the things that he would say. And I was like, oh my gosh, she said that while she was a secretary for them, she heard him talking, or like he was talking to her or whatever, that, oh yeah, Brianna had an affair and that's why she left and all this stuff. And that was prior to me calling him. So he already knew that I was being abused, but he was telling church people, random church people that like weren't really involved with me, or like not like super tight with me or whatever, that it was an affair. And that, finding that out in a live, and I'm just like, what? Because I had him on such a pedestal, and like I thought so greatly of him, and then here's someone that I loved and appreciated and respected so much my whole life. He's calling my situation an affair. Not, hey, are you okay? Like, hey, like, call me up and be like, hey, is this happening to you? Like, hey, are you all right? Like, you were just a kid in my church and school, and one of my teachers were taking advantage of you. But they don't think about it like that. They just think like it was just this full-blown, like, I wanted it to happen to me. And that just broke my heart. It just breaks my heart. It just, like, it makes me mad. So, anywho. Okay, I guess my last point, and I'll finish up, because, like I said, I could go on for days about this stuff, and maybe I will, which will make them really mad, but whatever. When all of y'all say things from the pulpit, it's that little rumor weed. If you ever watch that VeggieTale thing, the rumor weed just grows. But what also grows is our, well, I shouldn't say, okay, let me rephrase that. Okay, so you got a rumor mill that you spread, and this rumor grows like the rumor weed, and then our self-esteem gets crushed. So it's almost like the rumor grows and our self-esteem is crushed, and our anxiety grows for sure, because then we're like, what do? We're, being talked about as if we're the Jezebels and we are the church hookers or something. And it's just awful. It does so much damage when you talk badly about us, even if we've left, because we'll hear it, and then all of our friends have to think terrible about us, and then they put a black mark on us, like they can't talk to us anymore, they can't befriend us anymore, and then they're over there trying to defend you all as if like we're the bad guys, we're the problems when we leave. And there are so many, which I hate calling them this because I don't want to demote them as humans, they're just kids, but the bus kids, there are so many of them out there who have been abused, misused, and then thrown away like trash, And that is so disgusting to me, because they may have had a rough life. They may have had parents that, couldn't bring them to church or didn't want to. And you could have done so much good for those kids and given them an hour of relief from whatever home life they had, because bus kids were looked at like they have the rough home lives, they're poor or they don't have enough love. And you could do great things for them. Because church should have been an amazing thing. And it was in some respects to me. I had some amazing times. We did have some amazing activities. We had some amazing lessons that taught us how to have character and how to be good and how to forgive and how to be loving. So all of that could be really amazing if you cut out the abuse and the secrets. So you really need to cut out a lot of stuff for your mission to be complete in the best way possible. So I just had to mention the bus kids. You're just kids, and you were victims like us, and you were no less than the church kids just because your parents didn't take you to church. So I just wanted to say that, because that always broke my heart. Well, when I realized what we were saying and doing and how we treated them differently, and I just don't like that. So you're no less than us. You're the same amount of victim as us. And I hope that we can be of help to you now as adults. And I'm sorry if we were snobby to you, us kids that did have their parents go to church. We weren't any better. And every class of person kind of got treated differently. Like pastor's kids were like the untouchables. And then the full-time Christian service parents and their kids were like the best of the church, besides the pastor's kid or whatever. And then it was the divorced parents, that one parent came and one parent didn't, or the families that all came to church but they didn't go to the Christian school. They were on a different level. And then we just had levels of importance in the church, and it was these unknown classes of cliques. It was pretty dumb. So just saying, we're sorry about that. I'm just apologizing for the church that I was a part of. And now that my eyes are open, I feel like we could do better. Okay, so IFB churches, do better. Listen to us and hear what we're saying. Okay. Bye bye now. Bye bye. Bye bye.